I'm Richard Royal. I'm from Seattle, Washington. Lived in the Pacific Northwest my whole life and have been part of the glass community there and all over the world for the last 45 years. I went to a small state college in Washington, Central Washington State College, and they had a brand new fine art facility and they had a glass blowing program. And I happened to register first one quarter, and I said, I think I know what glass blowing is, but I'm going to check this out because I ended up going to school and taking almost nothing but art classes. I did 3 years and then actually started a ceramic studio and did that until I was invited to Pilchuck in 1978 to work, and I've been working with glass constantly since then. I started blowing glass 9 years after Harvey Littleton did the first studio in 1962 in Wisconsin. Not that we knew at the time, but I was in the middle of a studio glass movement, and it still seems to be really strong. Pilchuck is a school that focuses on all different techniques of glass working. It is a center for exchange of ideas in glass and glass technique, and glass is an art form. And it's in the Pacific Northwest, about 50 miles north of Seattle, where I live. Pilchuck has a great magnetic quality for people who are interested in molten glass or any kind of glass manipulations. The Relationship series is a series I started in 1989. I was teaching a class at Pilchuck about vocabulary between a design studio and the hot shop. And traditionally, designers would go into a factory situation and they would draw some designs and they'd take it to the hot shop and have the craftsman there create the piece. And none of my students really wanted to do that. They just wanted to blow glass, which is fine, but I wanted to do it. So I did a lot of drawings, and I was engaged to be married, and I came up with this idea of relationships and how they might look in a three-dimensional form, and that's kind of how they developed. And basically it's two equal entities that come together and embrace a single idea thought, which was represented sometimes just by an amorphic kind of form or a vessel shape. I kind of think as the top, because it's open, as your emotional self, the bottom as it's holding the whole piece up is your physical self, and then the center is your spirit, your soul, whatever you want to, but that's the most important part of that piece, and it creates this relationship. People ask me, how do I choose my colors and stuff like that? I think I have mostly an emotional kind of just connection with color and how they appear either on their own or in conjunction with other colors. Or I spend a lot of time looking at stuff in nature and the way, plants are primarily. The way the flowers change colors and just how the variegated quality of some colors and leaves and all that stuff. So I pay attention to that kind of stuff and kind of apply that to my sensibility in the work I do. So the diamond cuts happened to be when I first got sober in 1983. I started that. And I don't think consciously I was thinking about what they represented. I was more technique focused on what to do with these pieces and manipulating the form through technique. But it occurred to me as I'm looking at the pieces that I was able to see the surface and the interior of the piece simultaneously, exposing these layers. And it was a little bit like getting sober. It starts to expose yourself. So it became this kind of metaphor as personal exploration. Diamond cut pieces we're doing now, it's using the same technique that I started using in 1983. The whole process is from a technique I had the opportunity to see Jan-Erik Rietzman make some Swedish overlays when he was working as an instructor at Pilchuck. So I incorporated that, spent a day or so making these cups. Then they have multiple layers of colors, and then they have to be cooled down to room temperature, and then I slice them up with the diamond saw. And then once they get up to temperature, we'll create a form off a blowpipe, and we'll stuff that in there like an overlay. I cut the cups in a way that creates thick and thin areas in my bubble and use those thick areas and the thin areas to actually form the pieces. All my good ideas have always been right in front of me. It's just where my awareness is at and paying attention to what's going on around me. I still want to keep blowing glass and making, new stuff and kind of pushing myself. I'm at a point in my career where I'm being more careful about the kind of choices I make and what the work is, and spending more time with it. Studio glass is a community-based activity. It's hard to work glass, the molten glass especially, in a singular way. You can't go in there and really be as creative as possible. You can't do that by yourself, so you have to work with people. And when you're forced to work with people, you're forced to communicate clearly and ask for help. I just love the way that the glass just has this natural ability to bring people together, and I think that creates understanding and compassion.